It's going. All right. Welcome, viewers, to the fourth episode of From the First Note. I'm your host, Daniel Adkins. This is my guest, Anthony Church. He is a music producer. He has worked with over 30 independent artists from around the globe. His show, The Proven Knowledge podcast, has over 200 weekly episodes featuring other fellow creatives in the music space. He has self-released 10 solo instrumental projects since 2020 and has over 200 tracks in total in production credits. Wow, that's awesome, man. Thanks for being my guest. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks for getting back in touch, and I've been looking forward to it. So, glad to be here.
Yeah, man. I'm intimidated, man. You've got a lot. You've got a huge resume.
Well,
So
I know you said come up with some accomplishments, and I'm like, well, let me just list some of the stuff, that I guess it's kind of accomplishments. I mean, I'm blessed to be able to, say I've done it for as long as I have, and done a lot in a little amount of time too. But there's definitely a long way to go. I don't always look at like what I've done as super, a huge deal or anything like that. But it's good to look back on what you've done and be like, yeah, you've come a long way since the beginning. So I think that's the important thing. But
definitely, you've done a lot more than I have, but you know that's my own fault. And not saying I'm not being jealous, but you're a producer too, and um, I've always wanted to interview a producer, and I've come this close to contacting like recording studios nearby, or like all the
mm,
places that I've lived, and gone at it the Trent Reznor route. Just be like, dude, I will be your janitor
yeah.
if I can just sit there and watch over your shoulder and watch you, work the board or talk to other musicians, be that like fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if you know who Trent Reznor is, but that's how the first Nine Inch Nails album came to be. He was a
Yeah.
janitor in a Cleveland recording studio back in like the late '80s.
Kind of just worked his way up the ladder to where he is
Yeah,
now. So yeah,
they
that's
they allowed
awesome.
him to record. Yeah, because he mopped the floors.
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell us or the viewers and myself about your journey into music production?
Yeah, so I really started studying music production around 2012. So when I was like a freshman in high school, I just started looking into like who was making the songs that I was listening to at that time and what was that. And it kind of blew my mind that you could make music on a laptop. Like obviously you can make music a lot of ways, but the way that production was done, especially in like hip hop, was people had, their laptop or an MPC or something like that they were making beats on, and then they
Right.
would have the artist rap on it. So that kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow, that seems kind of like a cool thing. So I spent 4 years just kind of studying like, what is this? Is this even a possibility of something I could do? And then when I got out of high school in 2016, my friend and I, we took our senior trip to California, and his uncle actually is someone that had made music before. He still makes music, but he at one time had like a recording contract on the table. Like he was part of a group, and
Right.
he kind of like talked to us about his experience, and he was like, if you guys like music, you should give it a go. And my friend was already thinking about doing rapping, and he's like,
Right.
what if you make beats for me and I just rap? So when we got back from the trip, we ended up just starting. Like I downloaded a program called FL Studio. I made
Mm.
sure that I actually bought it with my own money instead of getting like the cracked version, because I was like,
Yeah.
if I invest in this, I'll take it seriously.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and then we just started working. And obviously, I made a lot of terrible music for the first like couple years.
Yeah.
And we put some of that terrible music out. Like some of the stuff is out there. Like his first couple projects, we kind of revisit them, and we're like, oh, that's
Mhm.
not that good. But it's
Yeah.
good to kind of look back and be like, yeah, we started it from somewhere. We weren't afraid to, be bad at the beginning and just slowly get better.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was like just working on it every single day. And really, for now 8 years, I've just been working on the craft every single day, just trying to get better, trying to get better, trying to learn new things. So that's really kind of where the production journey led me, and where, how it began in general. So.
Okay, that's awesome, man. So do you mainly focus on like R&B and hip hop and rap?
Yeah, so again, I think I was always a hip hop head growing up. Like I was super into just hip hop. I really wasn't into R&B until I got out of high school.
Right.
I just kind of closed myself off and was only focused on hip hop and the artists that I enjoyed. So I'd say it was around the time I started producing that I opened myself up to more genres, and R&B just kind of caught my attention
Mhm.
around like 20, really probably 2017 or 2018 is when I started to kind of pay attention and then kind of shift my sound toward more melodic stuff. So I
Right.
still make hip hop and classic hip hop and even some trap stuff here and there. It kind of just depends
Mhm.
on who I'm working with. But a lot of the stuff I'm posting, especially on like my beat store, and a lot of the artists I'm working with are singers. So I'm focusing more on R&B over the last couple of years, especially. So
Yeah.
it kind of just varies, like based on what I'm feeling, and even when I wake up each day, I make a random idea. It
Mhm.
might be something that's more along the lines of something a singer could be on, and then the next day I might make something like a '90s style boom bap song that like an
Mhm.
MC would be on. So it really just depends, but I've definitely opened myself up to more music and just gaining more inspiration to be able to make different types of styles. I don't think I'll ever make like a country song or something like that because that's just not really what I'm into. I have to be into the music still.
Right.
But I definitely am more open than I used to be as far as like the possibilities of what I could do. I've even done some pop stuff, co-producing with other artists too, things
Nice.
that I never thought I would do. So it's pretty cool. I think it's just at the end of the day, if I view it as good music, that's what matters. And if somebody else can resonate with it too, that's really what I'm trying to do as a producer. But
Nice. So I mean, let's say like the viewer has no idea, like they're just a music fan, but they have no idea other than a musical artist. Like they have a
yeah,
band that they like, but they, you know, give them like an insight of exactly what a producer is. What do you do
yeah.
in
So
this?
obviously the term producer could be, used in several different ways because a lot of people view even producers as people in the room giving ideas. Like even if
Right.
they don't know how to make music at all, that could technically be a producer or an executive producer is the
Mhm.
person that's kind of turning the gears for everybody involved in the process. For me, it's a
Mhm.
little bit of that, but it's also a little bit of actually making the music within the DAW, which is a digital audio workstation. So I don't play instruments. I used to play guitar when I was younger, and I gave it up. I want to pick it back up eventually. When I was a kid, I just didn't have the patience for it, so it didn't really last.
Right.
But you can do so much without even playing instruments, as long as you have an ear for it and you know key and you know how to match things up and sequence. You're just kind of building tracks. I usually only use like 5 to 6 sounds in a beat for the most part. I'm trying not to overcrowd it because when I first started out, I would overcrowd tracks a lot, put way too much in it, and then it just an artist would hear it and they'd be like, "There's way too much going on here." So when I
Right.
work with artists, I tend to kind of keep it very simple and to the point. And I almost want to, not put a ton in to begin with, so that if we want to expand on the idea, we can do that.
Mhm.
So if I'm working with an artist and they say, we want to add this here, or we want to change this part, then I'm able to do that later on. So for me, it's a little bit of all those things combined. It's the music, but it's also the ideas. And whether it's me coming up with my own projects and doing things all on my own, or if I'm working on a song or an album for someone else, I'm going to contribute what I can. And if they need me to do anything, I got to play my part and do that. I don't do writing or recording that much. I know how to record artists,
Right.
and I record like my buddy I was mentioning earlier. Like me and him, we've worked in person pretty much from the beginning, so I know how to record. I know how to sequence things, and a little bit of
Mhm.
mixing and mastering here and there too. It kind of just depends on the person. Like, what do you want to undertake? A lot of
You're
people
right.
do more than others. For me, that's what it's been though. So it's kind of just you wear the hats that you feel like you're able to contribute in.
Right.
You just play your role and just understand each person you work with is different too. So it's kind of going to change based on, each instance. So
Mhm. Yeah, you kind of touched on you don't really dabble with country, and we definitely share that in common. People have sat me down. I can't tell you how many times, and it's like they'll play me a song, and like as soon as it hits my ears, I'm like, I hate this. Like I can't. This is horrible. But I
yeah,
do plan to like if someone ever that does country music wants to be on this podcast, I'd definitely I would be more welcome. So open minded. That's
yeah,
it's definitely like as a hard rock, alternative metal, whatever you want to consider the stuff that I do type of guy. Like I'm intrigued with uh, maybe not their music, but just like their lifestyle. Their lifestyle is like same thing with punk. I can't stand punk music, but I'm like I really agree with some things that they how they act in certain aspects. But yeah, talking about producing, I when I lived a little bit outside of Atlanta back in probably 2015 or 2016. I kind of ran into a producer once. I was just at a guitar center as a guitarist. I just go there and
Hmm.
pick up all their expensive guitars and make them feel nervous as I played it. And I noticed the guy was just kind of like crowding me in the acoustic guitar room, and I was playing some type of like classical jazz stuff. I think it's Animals as Leaders. They're jazzy uh, gent. It's really, really difficult stuff to play.
Hmm.
And he stopped. He goes, "Man, that's amazing. Can you play stuff like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I can write stuff like that too, or whatever. I've been playing for how long, whatever." He goes, "I have a studio here," and I was like, "Oh, jackpot!" I was thinking me and my buddy could go there and record, but
Yeah.
he chatted me up for a while. Long story short, I get there and he's a producer, and I was like really blown away by how he set us all up because he had me come there and bring my guitar and an amp, but he also had a guy bring a bass. He had a drum set up in there already, and he had found guys all like us, just the same, and he was a producer. So he had this nice, big, cool, legit studio, and on his computer there was just tons of artists that he'd been working with and everything. But we were working with this one guy one day, and all the producer had done, he had played a bunch of synths and pianos very well, by the way, and basically done all those tracks. And then the singer had sang his parts extremely well, and they just wanted us to come up with stuff.
Yeah.
And in one physical day, the drummer, the bassist, and I laid down our tracks just off the top of our heads, and it was like the coolest experience ever.
Yeah. It sounds like a very organic like thing that happened too, because you just ran into this guy at Guitar Center, like super random. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. I never received any royalties. I
You got the
don't think it ever
experience
went
though.
anywhere.
Yeah, got that experience though. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So, what is your typical process for creating a track from start to finish?
Yeah, I mean, my process is really random, honestly. I usually do start with melodies, though. I'm a big fan of pianos. Like, piano's my favorite instrument, so I always try to start with like keys,
Yeah.
or if it is a guitar, something more melodic, something that catches my ear. I usually don't start with drums. There's a lot
Mhm.
of people that can start with drums and build around that. I've never been good at that ever. Like, if someone gives me like a drum loop or a drum fill, I'm like, let me do the rest first, and then I'll incorporate this in because for some
Right.
reason I have to start with some type of melody, the thing that you hear first. So that's kind of always where I start, and then I start building from there with the drums, with the bass line, whatever it needs. But like I said, I'm not trying to overcrowd it or do too much with it.
Mhm.
So that's really like the process. It kind of just depends. I could, program stuff in myself with MIDI, or I could get a loop from somewhere and just kind of chop it up and rearrange it. Or if I'm working with someone else, if they send me like a piece, like I got a buddy who's a pianist, he'll send
Right.
me things like that, and I might rearrange what he did, kind of make
Mhm.
something new out of it. So it's kind of cool because the possibilities are really endless for how you can create
Mhm.
and what you can do within the workstation. So for me, it's just keeping it simple, not doing too much, but always starting with the melody and just kind of
Yeah.
building from there. And then when it gets to a spot where I feel like, this is a real idea that we can use, then I just put it to the side. I
Mhm.
don't try to spend more than like an hour on a track, like when I'm first creating it. Because, like I said, if I need to come back to it and add or take away or change things, I'll do that. I don't want to
Mhm.
sit with a song all day and just be like, let me just do, change this and then rearrange. I'm just not that type of person. I'm just like, let's make this idea.
Yeah.
It's cool. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah. It could be
Uh,
counterproductive after a while.
Yeah, because I mean, especially if you're like one of the people that you want to be a perfectionist on every little thing you do, it's like I've always been more carefree with it. Just like I'm just enjoying creating. So let me just keep making ideas. And right now, as of the past like probably 5 or 6 months, I'm creating really only one or maybe two ideas a day. There were
Yeah,
times, especially when I started out, I was making 4 or 5 ideas a day just to get used to creating. Even though I knew a lot of the stuff I was making wasn't that good, it was
right,
just getting the muscle memory of like, let's just do this, make it a part of the daily routine. So that way it feels more natural. So now it's
right.
like I wake up and I immediately can make something, and it's not nearly as difficult as it was in 2018 as it is today. So I think that really did a lot of good for me. And now I feel like the pressure's not on myself to have to create every day. I just create when when it feels natural.
Mhm.
And another thing is I used to make beats in the evening, and a lot of those beats weren't that great because I was tired from the day. And I
Right,
realized that that was an issue for me. So I'm like, let me just start making stuff in the morning when I have energy before I
right.
really get the day going. So now I'm making everything pretty much at the beginning of the day. Like this morning, I made two ideas. That's it for the day. I'm not going to be making anything else. Like if I have
Yeah,
to go in and work on someone's project, maybe I'll do that. I'm not going to make a fresh idea for the rest of the day because I know it's not going to be up to the standard that I want it to be, because that's knowing your capabilities and knowing, your process and how what works best for you. So it's kind of cool to see how it's evolved, but yeah, I'd say that's really where my process is now.
cool. Have you ever worked with any rock or metal bands?
Not yet, but it's definitely on like my radar of what of things I want to do. I want to work with more live instrumentalists. Like I said, dip into different genres, see where I can contribute. I think it's more of just like it's obviously knowing people, but it's obviously also just feeling like I can contribute something to whatever song or project it is, because I don't want to just force something that, you know, isn't natural or organic. Like what you talked about with your experience with that producer, that was an organic thing. It
Yeah,
just happened and one thing led to another. I feel like when people try to force collaboration, it's never a good thing because usually the music doesn't come out that good.
right.
You have to have some type of rapport, some type of reasoning for what you're doing. So if something ever comes up and I feel like it's a good fit and we can make something cool, then I'm definitely on board. I'm definitely open to it. I'm never going to
Yeah,
close myself off and be like, no, like as long as I feel like the music's good, I'll do
right.
it, and I'll see where I can contribute.
Yeah, definitely awesome. So how do you exactly approach collaborating with artists? Do they reach out to you? How is it set up in R&B and hip hop in this day and age?
Yeah. So at the beginning, it was really a lot of me reaching out to other people because I didn't have a brand. I didn't have any music out. I didn't
Yeah,
establish
who is
any
this
type of identity.
guy?
Yeah, exactly. And it's still a lot of that, honestly. And I'm 8 years in. And it's like
Yeah,
you're always introducing yourself to new people. So you still got to keep reaching out to people. But luckily, I think when you build a brand and you build an identity and you get kind of, established a little bit, people start reaching out to you. So it
hmm,
kind of just depends. Like sometimes I've had people reach out to me, or other times I'm actively reaching out to others. So if I'm reaching out to someone else, it's, I've heard one of their songs or their album or something they put on social media that I'm a big
hmm,
fan of. And I'm like, wow, I like what they're already doing. Maybe I can come in and contribute something to what they're already doing and we can make something new. Um, and usually, if somebody wants to work with me, like on the other side, I kind of set up a call with them, see if it's a good fit, kind of talk about like where are they at in their career, but where are they at in life too? 'Cause
right.
that's a big thing too, is like what do you want to accomplish with this song or this album or whatever we're working on? Like what do you really want to accomplish? What's the story that you want to tell? And then
Hmm,
if I feel like it's a good fit and we're both, we have good chemistry and we feel like we can work together, then we move forward. Um, but yeah, I mean, if someone reaches out to me, it's kind of the same thing. I want to know those things, and I just want to know what they're looking for, and if I can provide that, that's the big thing. I don't like to just work with anybody, even if it's like a good check. It's like
hmm,
if it's not a good fit, I could make money elsewhere. Like, why would I put myself through that?
right.
And that's really where I'm at now, especially because I feel like at the beginning you want to you really want to do everything because you're
Yeah.
like, I'm so hungry to like work with people. But the more you go, you're like, I need to work with the right people because I
Mm.
need to keep my sanity as well. So that's a big thing too. And luckily, I've been able to work with a lot of awesome people. Really
Yeah.
haven't had any bad experiences, which is nice. So I really want to keep it that way. And it's really about knowing, who you are, but what you want for your brand and what you're trying to build too.
Mm.
And that's a huge thing for me is like I'm never gonna just do something if someone's throwing me money, but I feel like you're just not the type of person I would want to work with, and it's not gonna go well. I'm just not gonna do it. So that's just kind of how it is. But like I said, been very fortunate to work with some awesome people, and gonna hopefully keep that up as well. Just keep working with cool like-minded individuals. So.
Lucky. So, who is the biggest name that you've worked with? Can you even admit that? Can you say that on here, or is it
Yeah.
secretive?
I don't know. I feel like I've talked to bigger names through my podcast than I have actually working with artists because the majority of the artists I'm working with are like me. They're independent musicians. They're people that have either just started out or they've been, doing it as long as I have. Just like-minded people. But I feel like through the podcast, I've actually talked to a lot bigger artists, engineers, producers, things like that because I use the podcast as kind of a platform to educate others that are coming up in music and show
Yeah.
them, other people's stories too. Someone that comes to mind for the podcast is an engineer named David Kim, who mixed the last six albums by the rapper Nas. So that was like a cool thing to have him on the podcast
Wow.
because
Yeah.
the person that he works with, the producer, his name is Hit Boy. He's the one that produced the last six Nas albums, and he obviously like mixes and masters a lot of his music too. So
Yeah.
I've had him on two times, been able to talk to him and have him give like some stories of like what was it like to be in the studio with Nas, like how cool was that? Because not many engineers have ever even been able to do that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's kind of cool to have people like that and shed light and the advice you get from those people too, because they've worked at the highest level there is, and they have a lot of experience. And his story is kind of like what you were talking about earlier with Nine Inch Nails, whereas like he started doing things in studio, he would run like Uber and DoorDash for people,
Yeah.
and that's how he kind of got involved in that whole world. And then he worked his way up. Now he's the lead engineer in the studio. So he
Right.
really like put in the work to get to where he is today. So it's cool to hear stories like that. Um, but yeah, I mean that's really what comes to mind. I usually don't even look at like, what people have done or accomplishments or anything like that. I just look of like, are you a cool person? Do I like your music? Like, let's see where we can connect and if we can work together. And getting to reach out to people to be on the show is
Mm.
cool because if you get them on the show, you get to learn more about them than you ever would have learned just by being a fan of them to get to have
Right.
that conversation. So it's been really cool for sure.
For those like myself that don't exactly know what an engineer does, like, can you explain what an engineer does in the studio?
Yeah. So there's again, it's kind of like producers where there's different types of engineers. Like some engineers just mix the song, which
Mm.
mixing a song is basically taking each individual sound and leveling it out to a certain point. So, you could have your vocal track, your drum track,
Mm.
melodies, whatever a track or whatever a song includes, you have to mix each element of the song to make it sound good. And then mastering is pretty much just refining the mix. So once you mixed it, you master it, bring
Mm.
it up to the right level. You don't want to have distortion and things like that and make it sound really bad. So that's kind of what it is. So certain engineers mix and then certain engineers master, and then a lot of them do both. It
Yeah.
kind of just depends on like what they feel is best. And I think David, for example, I think he mixes, but I don't know if he does a lot of mastering. So
Mm.
he'll do like the full mixes for everybody, and that adding reverb, adding effects to songs that can include all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then they have a mastering engineer come in and do the rest. But a lot of people just do both. And it kind of just depends on the process and who's in the studio, who's working together. But I give a lot of credit to engineers because it's such a very technical side of music. Like you really got to be fully immersed in the technical side of things. And you got to really take in what the producer's telling you and what the artist is telling you, and then you got
Mhm.
to add a little of your own flavor too, and make sure everybody's happy. You're like the make sure everybody's happy person at the end of the
Yeah.
whole process. So and that's the stress that those people go through. Like I said, like even working with huge artists, I can't even imagine the pressure that's on those people to get it right.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really one of the most important jobs that there is in the whole process of making a song, making a project. So
Mixing and mastering is like a whole other universe of art form, right? It
yeah,
is. Um, I did a little, like just a couple of classes with someone with a degree with recording, Logic Pro. And granted that it's a little easier to record and kind of get the recording that you do in like a Logic Pro to bounce onto your phone to where you can listen to it in your car and jam out to it.
mm,
It's a lot easier to do with like MIDI control instruments. You still have to refine it quite a bit,
yeah,
but when it's rock and metal, oh my god, man, it
yeah.
is a nightmare.
I can't
There's just
imagine mixing that genre, and I always think about EDM too, how difficult it would be to mix like the bass in EDM and make it sound good, but not have it like too distorted. I don't even
yeah.
know how they do it. So,
I think when they go to school, they probably just remember numbers. Like this guy, for instance, taught me, which I didn't listen to him. When you start recording a guitar track, for instance, like a live instrument,
mm,
he mentioned that you want to keep it on like -6 dB.
yeah,
That way, when you mix it later on, I was cranking it up. I was
yeah.
just like, and if you hear my two-piece band's music, you can hear like if you are a songwriter, you can be like, okay, I know what they're going for, but why does this
Mm.
guy's guitar sound like someone smacking a wad of rubber bands instead? Because I mean, I would take off the headset and I would just be like physically nauseous from first off, like just sitting there listening to the same song over and over. It's just
Yeah.
it's soul crushing. And then sitting there like tweaking it each time, and for you to take off the headset and be like, I'm gonna go get dinner, and then come back to it, and it just sounds like complete shit. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh my god, man.
I can't imagine the just the mental fortitude it takes to do it because I've tried to do it and I do light mixing here and there just
Yeah,
for like my own work and maybe some other people's stuff here and there, but I'm not gonna ever probably be mixing and mastering full projects for people because I just don't feel confident in my ability and I'm just not that technical with it. Like I'm just really not. So I got to give credit to all the engineers out there that do what they do and do it at a high level too because it's like you really got to be locked in to get it right. I
right.
think.
Yeah, they're awesome. And
Yeah,
I'm sure there's probably not too many of them around compared to probably like in the 90s and everything. So
yeah,
they're still extremely important. I mean, my genre of music definitely needs them, unless the guys that I worship are just walking around with that type of knowledge somehow, some way.
yeah,
Speaking of that stuff, so what are your go-to tools for what do you use? What kind of instruments do you have in your studio laying around to start producing others' music?
yeah. So like I said, I use FL Studio. I think I'm on like the 20th version at this point, and that's primarily a workstation that's prevalent in hip hop and R&B.
Yeah,
So like I said, a lot of the producers that I was a fan of, like when I was coming up, they used that one, and it seemed like one of the easier ones to learn. So that's kind of why I ended up going that route. Obviously, there's like Logic, there's Pro Tools, there's all those other ones as well. They all do
mm,
similar things, and they all do some different things too. I use like some FL plugins that are free. I don't use a ton of like paid plugins or anything. But other than that, I'm really either just in the box or I'm doing it with a MIDI controller. I have two M audio controllers. I have like a 49 key and a 32 key controller. That's pretty
mhm.
much just what I'm using to do everything. I have a um, little preamp that I use as well, and I can obviously do in-home recording and things like that with it. It's pretty mobile too. Other than that, though, I'm really just in the box using loops, using different plugins, and
Yeah,
just making it work from there. So, but like I said, if I ever pick up like guitar or anything else, I'm probably gonna kind of expand what I'm doing and hopefully like build it out and make like a little studio to kind of incorporate everything with.
Yeah.
But
Do you have like a home studio, or do you have like a physical address for somewhere else just for your studio?
I've always just worked out of home or just wherever I can go and just
Right.
bring my little portable setup and just get it going. And I think that's the cool thing about like where we're at now in music is you can do that a lot easier than you could like 20, 30 years ago when you had to go to the actual studio to get something done. Now a
Yeah.
lot of people are building studios in their houses that are better than the actual studio you would go to pay studio time for because
Mhm.
it's just a lot simpler to get those tools and I don't have like a super huge setup, but like I said, you kind of just work with what you got and go from there. Luckily, I got another engineer that mixes a lot of like my artist stuff. Like I'll
Yeah.
send to him, and he'll be able to mix and master that stuff and send it back to me too. So I always kind of work with him. Like if I need him for a certain project, I'll work with him. But other than that, like if I'm doing my own mixes, I'll just do some headphone mixes. I'll do some car tests kind of just go back and forth from there and make it work. And if I feel good about it, I'm like, let's do it. Like I feel good about this song and where it's at, and yeah, it feels good to do that, honestly, and just to be able to kind of work with what you have and slowly expand it from there. But I've
Hmm.
always been someone that looks at it like, it's not really about the tools, it's about the person that's
Right.
what you're how you're using what you have. So um, I think just the simpler the better, and you kind of just trust your instincts and go from there. So
So with R&B, hip hop, EDM, like any of that type of music, um, are you mostly producing, mixing a little bit here and there? Are you doing it with headphones? Or are you doing it with studio speakers, or a mixture of both?
yeah, I've always been more of a headphones person.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels more like you're getting the real listener's experience because a lot of people are listening to the music on headphones. They're not always going to be listening to it on speakers unless they're in their car, of course, which that's why the
Right.
car test is important because it's like where are the
Well, I've
consumers
always
listening to it the most is the
that's
car and their headphones. Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it's just getting that experience too and then just being able to kind of sit with it from your own perspective and be
Right.
like, huh, how does this really sound? And like you said earlier about, when you work on something, then you take a break and you come back. I like to do that too, because you do get a different perspective. You get to hear it with fresh ears. So I
Yeah.
like to do that here and there. And I might even do that like if I make something today, I'll let it go for a bit and then I'll come back tomorrow and listen to it just to see if it still holds up to what I felt yesterday, whether
Right.
it's good or bad and then I can kind of adjust from there. But yeah, I've always been more of a headphones type of person. I think that just comes from like being a fan of music and just always like having headphones on regardless. I probably wear headphones too much. Like I'm wearing them right now. Probably
Right.
wear headphones like 8 hours a day. It's probably not good for like my ears or anything, but yeah, it's really just how it is, I think.
Are there is there like a certain brand or brands that you like the most for producing and mixing?
Yeah. This brand's called Audio Technica and they make studio quality headphones. I have this pair which is wireless and then I have another pair
Hmm.
that is just strictly a pair with a cord. I forget how long the cord is. It's like a 3 foot cord though. So you can kind of work and like stand on the other side of the room. If you have it plugged into your laptop, you could do
Right.
that. Or you could just use the wireless. But the quality on these has always been very good. And what they do is they kind of make sure that everything's balanced out. So a lot of headphones, especially for consumers, they boost the bass a lot
All
because
right.
you want to hear the bass like Bose and like Beats and things like that. That's a very bass boosted headphones. For
Yeah.
things like this, it's like they want it to be balanced out so that the creators know where everything is actually sitting. You get the real honest like noise, you know what I mean? You're not getting anything a little too stronger than the next. So that was a real important thing for me when I was deciding on like what brand do I want, to have for headphones. I was
Yeah.
like, I studied a lot of brands and I came to the decision of, using Audio Technica because I was like, I know a lot of people that already use these for in studio and in home. And I was like, it just seems like a good choice. And the build quality too is great. Like I've had these for 4 years now, and they're still going strong.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because they actually have like one of their main campuses for their corporate office is like 20 minutes from where I live, which is crazy.
Nice.
So, but I found that out randomly. I saw them on LinkedIn one day. And it said
Yeah.
Akron, Ohio is where they're based at. Like they're a Japanese company, so they make and manufacture and they have their main plant in Japan. But Akron, Ohio is where they have one of their other main parts of the company. And it's like that's so random, but it's
Yeah.
hilarious at the same time. So
Especially 20 minutes away. And
yeah.
I've been to Akron. I'm from Huntington, West Virginia originally. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I know all about Ohio. I've been there a gazillion times.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. Yeah, there's your free endorsement right there. You don't even
Well,
have to ship it that far, guys. You can
I
just
was gonna
drive
say,
it to Anthony's house,
yeah, hopefully one day I get like a brand deal or something with them. I'd love to do something, but we'll see. So
right? Yeah, I would second. Like I think you were talking better about the wireless. If I could have done it all over again, we bought me and my one bandmate. We bought a corded version. I don't think it was Audio Technica. It was another brand, but Guitar Center. We walk in there. They have a big section of recording stuff, and we asked them like, so we need some headphones to record because we're having a hard time, or not record but mix and master.
mhm.
We want it to sound right, and just like you said, a lot of people that are just music fans have no idea what you have to go through. So not only do you have to come and bring the talent, you have to record it without messing up, which is actually hard because when you sit
Yeah.
down, and especially when you have someone that's sitting there going, all right, I'm about to hit record, and it's like the real thing's on. It's like you play
Mhm.
live, you can mess up. People almost enjoy that, and it's just like, yeah, this guy's real, or this guy's or girl's real, whatever.
Mhm.
It's just like an attitude thing. But when you're in a studio, it's like I want this to be what somebody listens to for like the
Yeah.
next 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
So when you let that get in your head, when you're a guitarist, your hands start shaking, getting tensed
Mhm.
up. But and we would sit there like would take that headset, and I've traveled so much with it, wrapping the cord the best way, the worst way, or whatever. Now that it's been with me through many states, now it will only work when I'm like holding the wire
Yeah. Oh yeah.
in. So,
It's the worst.
yeah, wireless are the best.
Yeah, I will say I that's another reason I love even the wired headphones that these guys make is you can actually detach the cord from the headphones and then plug it
That's,
back in, which is great. I wish all headphones were like that have a wire. Like if they made them like that, you would never probably need a new pair unless something happened to the actual like functionality of the headphones. Because it's like that just saves so much time and energy, as opposed to having to wrap them all the time and you
yeah.
worry about them getting damaged.
Hmm.
So yeah, I definitely can relate to that from old pairs of headphones though. So
Yeah. I've always said we could land a man on the moon, but for some reason I can't record and it sound like
yeah,
what I wanted to right here in my MacBook, but I can't bounce it to my phone and go put it in the car and it sound exactly the same. Like what is
yep,
this?
yep.
Makes
We
absolutely no sense.
can't get the audio files things figured out, but we got everything else figured out, I guess.
Right? It
So
doesn't make any
yep.
sense. All right, moving on. What's your take on blending the blending of R&B with other genres like hip hop, pop, electronic music, or even rock and metal? Like back when Jay-Z and Linkin Park.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm glad you brought that one up. The Collision Course. Not a lot of people know about Collision Course.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people didn't like that EP, but I actually liked it. And I was a Linkin Park fan growing up too.
right.
So yeah, I like that. But I honestly like it. I know a lot of people. It obviously causes a lot of like debate, especially amongst like older music fans. And I definitely in hip hop, I don't really know about R&B kind of because for R&B, like there's like a lot of trap influence in some R&B,
Yeah,
which I'm not really super tapped into how people feel about that. I think a lot of people that are fans of 90s R&B don't really like it that much. But for hip hop, obviously the debate is like, hip hop went from like the 90s style primarily to trap. at least in the mainstream, which it's not really like that if you're actually digging for certain artists, because all these styles are still prevalent. It's just they're not prevalent in the mainstream, and
Yeah.
that's why it causes a lot of issues with people. But I think it's a byproduct of, you know, there's a lot more people making music. It's a lot easier to access the ability to make music, and people are just getting more creative with it too. And I don't think that's ever going to be a bad thing. Like debating aside, I think it's just like you got to keep evolving and changing things, and we kind of lock everything into genres and classifications and things like that. But I think the
Right.
beauty of being able to make music is, like I said earlier, the creative possibilities are endless. You know what I mean? It's just going to keep going and keep evolving. We're going to have different little subgenres and things like that. I think it's just everybody has their own taste, and everybody is just going to keep doing their own thing. And however you perceive it or receive the music is up to you. You know, if you don't like it, it's doesn't mean someone else won't like it.
Right.
So that's kind of just my take on it is I think it's just going to keep going. So we kind of just got to accept it whether we like it or not. But
Mhm.
I don't personally have an issue with it. I think it's good to continue to push the boundaries of creativity and just keep doing that and see where it goes. So,
Yeah, I think I don't know what kind of age difference you and I have. I just turned 38 a couple months ago, but being a kid and um, growing up like glued to the TV and actually seeing music videos on
yeah.
MTV and actually just yeah, just I was a music fan at a young age and stayed that way. And I love the '90s, obviously. Um, as anybody that was a kid, or anybody who was around, you can't deny that it was such a good era of music all around. But I will say, some genres, unfortunately, like in my taste of music, they're like lacking horribly. As far as
Hmm.
rock, hard rock, they're pretty much non-existent. You only see like all these festivals. You'll see Foo Fighters. It's like, okay, love Foo Fighters, but there's really no one that's ever really like closed that gap in the last
Yeah.
10, 20 years. But as far as like hip hop and R&B, uh, R&B back in the 90s, just from my perspective, it was a lot of like one hit wonders. And then there was like 5 to 10 really good artists, which I did throw in our bracket. If we
Yeah.
even get to that, if anybody could see that, I threw in like Seal and Erica Badu, Sade. You can't deny those.
Hmm.
Those are great R&B artists there. But I feel like um, as still someone who listens to R&B as myself, there's tons of artists like it's a crazy amount that are really really good. Like you threw
Yeah.
me eight brand new ones, and I've listened to a lot of brand new ones in the last 10 to 20 years, and it just there's so many in the R&B and even hip hop uh, genres that you can tell that that's why that's the main focus of the mainstream music right now, because it's definitely left rock behind, unfortunately.
Yeah. And
But
again, though, I think a lot of that has to do with how music making changed because it became easier and a lot
it's
more artists are out here now. Like 30 years ago, a lot of people could not make music because it actually wasn't possible to do it compared to now where it's like you have a phone, you could technically make a song. So it's
right.
like I
Yeah.
think that is a big contributor to that whole thing, but it also contributes to how people view it who were alive back then or people that are only fans of music from a certain time period. It's
Hmm.
obviously going to affect how they view it too. So yeah, it's interesting stuff to think about because it's not things you always think about like on the day to day.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah. And for some reason, I've never really put that two and two together. That it's more difficult to like do that type of stuff because you need 4 or 5 guys realistically, or girls, guys, girls, whatever. And yeah, just forming a band, and I've been in quite a few of them. There's just have you ever seen the movie Spinal Tap, where it's just like a bunch of funny, cheesy stuff happens? It's always that.
yeah,
And I'll get to this question, but I always use it at the last end of the interview. towards everybody, but I always want to know like what is the craziest experience that you had meeting like another musician, because I've just had so many. I don't know what it is about like rock and metal guys or girls or whatever. Like when you are trying to form a band, you're always gonna have one just complete nut bar show up at someone's house, wherever you're jamming at, and it's just gonna be like, what the fuck just happened? What was
Yeah,
that? Do I
yeah.
need to move? This guy or girl's gonna come back and like slaughter all of us in our sleep.
I think for me, like I said earlier, luckily I don't really have any horror stories. So really, I don't think anything's coming to mind, honestly, because
Hmm.
the way I've always viewed it is I look to, well, first of all, I don't really go out that much, so I'm usually kind of just plotting my own thing on my own. And I've never been in a band or a group, so I really don't know what that experience is like personally. I've worked with people on an individual basis, or I've worked with them virtually. Like it doesn't really matter, but I always try to just work with people that I know I'm gonna be working with well, and not someone like you said that's just like totally off the wall.
Yeah.
So luckily, I can say I don't really have any type of experience like that currently, which is nice.
Right.
And I'd like to keep it that way. So fingers crossed that hopefully
Wow.
we can keep it that way.
I
So
figured you would have met at least like one diva or something, like a J Lo. I gotta have holy water and
see,
at
that's
the
the thing, though.
studio.
I think if that did happen, I would just be like, yeah, I don't think this is the right fit, honestly. But
So you're a smart
I
guy.
wouldn't be, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mean about it. I would like explain I give you a real reason of like why this isn't gonna work. And
Yeah.
I'd be like, I wish you all the best. Like, I really do. Like, hopefully you find the right person, but I don't think it's me. You know what I mean? It's not gonna work very well. So.
Yeah.
I've just kind of always been that way in general. Like in my whole life, I'm just like I want to surround myself with people that, are supposed to be in my life, people that I can serve them, and if they want to do anything to me, that's fine. Um, but that's kind of how I've always approached it. Is I got to be surrounded with people that are supposed to be in my life, no matter if it's on a working or a personal relationship. So, yeah, but to each their own. I feel bad for people that have had those types of things happen to them. And there's a lot of interesting individuals out there, so you gotta kind of just gotta watch and see what happens.
Whoever's watching
So,
this, model your life after Anthony, not me. We were like, I've always just been a yes guy. Like, yeah, that guy seems all right. Bring him on over, and just
yeah,
like packing a gun. I've legit brought guns with me to like meeting people, or just
just
had
in
them
case.
around. Yeah, like I think this guy or girl's acting a little fucking crazy. Anyway, what's one thing that you wish you would have known when you first started producing?
Honestly, just the amount of patience that it takes really to just be doing music in general. Because I think at every stage that you get to, you got to remind yourself of the patience that it takes to get to the next stage. Because you
Yeah,
always kind of want to be ahead of where you are today, or you're looking at your goals like a year from now. You're like, man, I can't wait to be there, but I understand it takes, one day at a time, and you got to really just be aware of putting in that work to get there because there's really no shortcuts. There's really no way to skip ahead or fast forward through the journey. And you shouldn't really want to do that. You should want to experience, what it's like to kind of build this thing up and go from there. So I think no matter if you're producing or you're an artist or you're an engineer, whatever you want to be, I think that applies to everybody. You just got to kind of take it one step at a time, one day at a time, and just have the patience to be like, if I put in the work today and I keep doing that consistently, it's going to start paying off over time. And that's really what it's been like in my journey so far, and that's kind of how I aim to keep it. So,
right. Speaking like you're uh, hired to record a song, just one song. Um, in your line of work as a producer, is there like a time frame? Is that how it works? Did they
yeah, I
give you a
mean,
time frame?
yeah, that usually just goes into that having the conversation beforehand. I usually would ask, do you want this done in a week? Do you want this done like, do you have a month to get it done? We ask them about like the project. Like,
Mhm.
when is the timetable for the release date? What else do you need from me? Just things like, so it's just a case by case basis.
Right.
As far as like recording songs, like I said, I haven't done a ton of that in person. A lot of stuff is like me sending to artists and then they're recording with their own engineer or they're just recording on their own. But if I'm
Right.
recording, it usually happens like right there and then, and we'll just do the takes we need to get it done. Should only take, maybe an hour, if that. Sometimes it kind of just depends on how the vibe is going. But if the artist is feeling, the song, they're already ready to go. They got the verse written and they're ready to execute it. We just lock in and get it done. So
Mhm.
I think it's just a case by case basis. But for something like that, it usually doesn't take too long. But it's all about having the conversation beforehand. So.
Right. Have you ever put yourself on like Fiverr or Airbit? Have you ever heard of any of those?
Yeah, I don't have either one of those. I do have Upwork, which is kind of similar to Fiverr, where
Yeah.
you can post your profile and apply to jobs and things like that. I apply to things every once in a while. I've got a few jobs from there, not a ton. A lot of
Right.
currently a lot of the clients I've gained are just on my own, like
Yeah.
super organic, reaching out to them or they reach out to me. And then, we've just continued to work over the last few years. So but I put myself on a few of those platforms just for the opportunities because you never know. Like you might
Right.
find somebody on there that is looking for exactly what you can provide, and then you could start a working relationship with that person.
Mhm.
So it's important to be on like those different platforms. And that's a big reason I'm on like BeatStars to post my instrumentals because you never know who's going to find those tracks. You know what I mean? And if
Stars.
you're, yeah, you ever
Right.
heard of that platform?
No, I've only known of like Airbit where you can post beats, you can post them for
Yeah.
free, and you can start selling them if you want. So is that same thing?
Yeah,
Similar?
it's very, very similar. Airbit was around first, I believe, because a lot of
Mhm.
people were doing that. And another one was called SoundClick, which is actually
Yeah.
where I started out at. You could sell your tracks for like a couple bucks. BeatStars is basically like taking the licensing thing to a full, like another level where you can set different price points for artists. And they could get, different, like you get the different file types, but you obviously get different ways that you're able to use the songs that you purchase too. So I try to put a track up there every single day. And I've had clients that I'm working with now on a one-on-one basis that found me through BeatStars because I've just been so consistent with it.
Right.
So I look at it, I look at that platform as, you put songs up there, and if you're doing like the metadata and things like that to get discovered, you never know what's going to happen. So you might as well continue to be consistent on there. And I actually just connected with an artist a couple of days ago that she bought one of my beats and then she emailed me and she's like, I want to work with you one on one now. Like I want some custom work and things like
Yeah.
that. So we're going to set up a call here in the next couple of weeks and kind of discuss what we can do from there. But she just discovered me. Like I did absolutely nothing. She discovered my music from there. And she's like, I love your instrumentals. Like I really want to work with you.
Mhm.
So it's just things like that. It's like if you're putting yourself out there, being consistent, putting yourself in the right spots, you never know what's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. How does the copyright work on that? So say this girl has bought that beat, and obviously you don't want some type of copyright infringement or whatever. You don't want her to
yeah,
take a song and make it ginormous. You know, it hits the airwaves and everyone loves it,
yeah,
but all of a sudden you realize that someone else uh, maybe has used it, but you're the guy that created the beat though, and now you're stuck in a weird situation. Like,
yeah.
is that a possibility?
Well, so far that hasn't happened to me, but it is definitely a possibility. And the different license types are, kind of where that comes into play. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is individually, like, how do you want to run your production business? So certain people will keep licensing the same MP3 to thousands of artists, and they don't care about any of that stuff because they're like, well, I still get a sale every time that someone does
Yeah,
it. So they don't even care about the back end stuff because they're like, I'm
yeah,
making more money up front by licensing the same thing for like 30, 40 bucks. Why would I care about the back end? Other people do. Other people are like, well, if the song blows up, then I want to strike another deal where I get 50% of everything. So let's work that out. It's really just totally random, honestly. But what it
mhm,
allows people to do, it allows producers to do, is be able to actually sell the music and get that up front and then be able to work things out in the back end. They have their own pre-made contracts and they make it
Yeah.
very easy to set up and understand, but you can do a lot of things afterwards on your own. And that's why I always try to reach out to artists after I make a sale. I'll reach out to them directly and carry it from there because BeatStars doesn't do a ton of stuff for you. They allow
Right.
you to get discovered. They allow you to make the point of transaction easy. But from there,
Mhm.
it's all on you to make that a relationship and keep it going. So
Right.
it has its pros, has its cons. It's really just in how you look at it. And a lot of people are concerned with what you're talking about, which is like, what's going to happen if copyrights and all, et cetera, et cetera. Um, yeah. So it really just is the Wild West, honestly. But it's really
Yeah.
just how do you want to run things and how do you want to make it go. And a lot of people sell like sound packs on there too for other producers.
Yeah.
So you can put like your loops and things like that in, and you can make money that way. You
Yeah.
can do other services on there other than just selling beats too. So, and they're always like changing the platform, integrating new things and stuff like that. But yeah, that's been my experience with it so far. But from a discoverability standpoint and from what I've been able to do working with people, like
Mhm.
so far, I can't really complain for what I've been able to do with it. But
So you sell you sell a track off of BeatStars. Does it remove it from your profile, or you have the capability of just keeping it on there and selling it
so
again?
yeah, so if they get the exclusive license, which is they get the full capabilities of using the song, it'll automatically be taken off. If they get
Okay.
any license below that, it's up to you. If you want to keep it up there, you can. Like I said, people keep it up there. Like if they have a popular track that keeps getting bought, they'll just keep it up there because they just keep making money off the same beat over and over again. But if you're someone that feels like, this song is really good with this artist, I like what we did, and maybe I'll work something out on the back end to get some more money later on. I'm just going to take it down and just go from there. That's why I said it's really just an individually based thing.
Mhm.
Whatever you want to do with it, you can do with it. You can customize it however you want. And they still allow you to be like a real individual with it at the end of the day. So, but they make things easy for that barrier of entry
Yeah.
with, getting you more clients, things like that. And yeah, so
It's interesting. Maybe I'll start putting some stuff on there and clearing up some space on my computer.
yeah, I believe they still have a free plan as well. I don't know what the free plan incorporates, but there's the pro plan where you can do unlimited tracks and all those sorts of things. So
Right.
yeah, it's really just whatever you want to do, and you can try it out and kind of see how it goes. So
I'll definitely hit you up when we stop recording and make sure I get the name of that right.
okay,
BeatStars, right? Oh, what happened? All right, yeah, just had a little hiccup. Don't know what happened, but yeah. At the end of this, I'll hit you up for that.
okay,
Make sure I got the name of that right.
yep,
The beats. We're almost done, and if you have time for the bracket, we'll do the bracket,
yeah,
or
we can
you'll
do.
do the bracket.
Yeah, we can do it. I got the names like off to the side here. So how did you want to do this? Like,
Actually,
what were you thinking?
I have a way to present it to where on the screen you'll see it, and I actually have the
Okay,
bracket pulled up. Um, so I just asked this. I'll make it the last question. So, are there any up and coming artists and or producers that you're excited about now?
up and coming artists. I mean, there's always so many too, and I feel like with like the streaming era, being able to discover artists has become a
Hmm.
lot easier, and just I feel like I'm discovering new people every day.
If you
Um,
want to, you want to name drop some of the people that you're currently working for that you know that are working
yeah,
with.
yeah. So, well, my artist, like I said, that I've worked with since the beginning, his name is Jay Trey. We're actually putting out his next project next Friday. It's called Gray Matter, which I'm super excited about. Another artist who's in Ohio, he's actually in Cincinnati. His name is Grizz, and I'm doing a full album for him as well. We're kind of getting like the final mixes done for that, and then that'll
Mm.
be coming out soon. I got another album with an artist from Boston named Soma 79. So we're getting the final features for that album, where it's kind of in the works. So got that album coming out. Um, yeah, off the top of my head, those are the three that I know I'm super like locked in with currently. And then there's a lot of different people that are wanting like certain songs or just start working on projects. Like I mentioned that artist the other day. A lot of different instances like that too. But those are three of the people that definitely come to mind that, I either have projects done or they're coming very soon. So,
Definitely. Awesome. I'll be listening to that when they come out. And what I'll do is when I post this, what I do is I post it in a couple clips, and I post it on like TikTok and YouTube. That's all I
oh yeah.
have for my stuff so far. And I'll post the whole podcast on YouTube. But what in the description below, I'll put some of your stuff. Let me know, like send me a link to all your stuff so the
Okay.
viewers can check that out and
I can
look
do
at
that.
all your work.
Most
And I'll
definitely.
show you what I'm talking about as far as the bracket. Just give me a second to pull it up. It's pulled up already. It's okay to laugh at how cheesy it is. There you go. Can you see that all right?
Might have to zoom in a little bit. I can see the bracket. I can't see the names though, but I do have the names over here if I need them. So
So I usually start at the top left, and you've got Seal versus Tash. And unfortunately, Tash is one of those. You gave me your 8, and I listened to, I believe, 5 of them. I like them a lot, but I didn't get to Tash.
okay.
Yeah. But Seal is Seal, man. He's been around forever. I did. What do you think? What do you think about Seal? Like, are you a fan of like the '90s R&B, like Seal,
See,
Sade, Erica
I'm not.
Badu?
I'm aware of all these people. I'm just not super tapped in with all of them because it just
Some
wasn't
people,
my era of music.
some
Uh,
people will just hear Seal and they just go, "Oh yeah, Kiss from a Rose." That's cheesy, but the
didn't
dude
he
actually
do
has.
the He did the song that was in Space Jam, didn't he? What was it
No,
called?
that was R. Kelly.
Oh, I thought he did one too though.
He
I'd have
probably
to see
did
if there's.
actually.
Yeah, I forget which one it was though.
You
Oh
might be
man.
right.
I could be wrong, honestly. I don't know. It wasn't the R. Kelly one, though. I know that. I swear it was another one, but
Space Jam. I'm googling
I
it.
could
You
totally be
being
wrong.
more of an R&B head, though, I'm gonna let you take full reins of this one.
Well, I could talk about Tash for sure, because I just started listening to her this year. Actually, she
Hmm.
came on there's a Spotify playlist that's called R&B Weekly, and I try to tap in with that every week, like when I'm
Hmm.
posting different beats to see like
Yeah.
inspiration. And I heard she had a song called Dopamine, and I was like, oh, this is really cool.
Hmm.
She works with like the same producer on all her tracks, and a lot of them are like acoustic bass or like guitar based tracks, but
Yeah.
it's more like a blend of pop and R&B. But I really like her voice and like her cadences, and she puts out a song, I think, every month. So
Wow.
far, like what I've heard from her in the past several months, I've just been pretty impressed. So she's like one of the newer artists that I started checking out this year. I think the song she put out last month was called One Time. So I like that song. Dopamine's cool. What else? 787's a really great song. It's probably my favorite one. But yeah, she's super good artist. So I think she's from Australia, but
Yeah.
she's been like recording back and forth in LA and in Sydney. So yeah.
It's new music for me to listen to when I'm at the gym. I've reached a weird age where it doesn't take Pantera and Meshuggah to make me work out. I can listen to
Yeah.
podcasts. I can listen to R&B, whatever.
Yeah. You got the range now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
What's it?
you were right. Seal or not?
What
Yeah,
was it?
Seal was it was "Fly Like an Eagle" cover.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Forgot
I
that
think
he did.
that's the only thing I probably know, honestly. Unless I heard something and I just didn't know it was him.
You probably haven't. You probably haven't because a
Huh.
lot of his stuff has been kind of. I think he was huge when he very first came out
Yeah.
in the, I think it's 89 actually, or maybe 90. But do a deep dive. I can, was it the Love Still Remains the Same? That one's good. Dreaming in Metaphors is badass as a producer. I think you would love that one.
Hmm.
He has really good instrumentals, other than just awesome range in his voice. And it's hard to put a thumb on like what kind of style it is. It's almost like I could tell this guy's influenced by prog rock. Like it's
Yeah.
almost odd time signature stuff, but it's not. It's very, very good.
Hmm.
And I'll say this: he had when he very first came out, um, he had Victor Wooten on bass, which is a huge
Wow.
deal. And like in my world of music, it's that's like one of your best bass players out there. And for him to be like, yeah, I'll take a gig for this guy. I don't know if he did all the bass for him and toured with him, but that's huge.
Yeah.
It's a really good bass player.
Yeah.
So,
That's really cool.
um, I don't know, man. Tash is new. Seal's a legend. So,
I think it should probably give Seal the nod, honestly, just for the track record.
yeah, this one will be a little bit more, a little easier for the both of us. So I chose October in London, who I'm like really impressed with. Um, I think he was signed by like Snoop Dogg. He's only been out for a little while, as far as I know, and
Hmm.
he's got like he sounds like Marvin Gaye, big time.
Wow.
Really good.
Yeah, I've heard the name. I just haven't heard anything yet.
Mhm.
I saw that he had just dropped a song like recently though. I think in August, but
Hmm.
I haven't listened to it. So
You probably dig it. Ombre, that's probably how you say it.
yeah,
I haven't. I did not get a chance to listen to them, fortunately. So.
yeah. So she is. See, when did I discover? Probably like 3 or 4 years ago.
Hmm.
I don't even remember which song. She has an album called Pulp, which I was a big fan of.
Hmm.
Um, and she produces like all of her own stuff. She songwrites for a lot of people. Do you know the artist Kaylani by chance? You ever
Sounds
heard of her?
familiar.
She's a pretty big R&B artist currently, and has written a lot of stuff for her, and she's produced a lot of stuff for her as well. But her own music, I've always just been very impressed with like the sound and the style. Pulp
Mhm.
is probably my favorite album. She just dropped like an EP that had like demos on it this past summer, which is super cool. She's just collaborated with a lot of different individuals that I was familiar with. I think she had a song with an artist named Smino that was called, what was it called? Well, anyway, that was the song I probably discovered her on. I probably discovered her on the R&B Radar playlist or the R&B Weekly. Probably the
Yeah.
same thing, but it was like a few years ago, so I don't really remember. But like ever since I found her stuff, I've just been a big fan of her voice and her production style. And I think it's cool that she does like all of her own stuff for the most part too. So
Cool.
I think as far as songwriting goes, she's probably one of the better like newer songwriters that's out there, honestly, in R&B.
I'll have
So
to definitely check her out then. And
yeah.
I went ahead and put her ahead of October London. I think October London. I'm probably wrong. I'm sorry, but I think he only has like one record out. Even though it was
Wow.
awesome, um, I doubt that he did everything himself and everything and has written for other people. So we'll go ahead and put Ombre there for that one. I did listen to a handful of songs of Jayla Darden, and I was impressed. I liked it a lot. Um, but I threw a weird one in there, FKJ. Hopefully you've heard of him.
I have heard of FKJ, but I haven't heard any of the music. But I know he's worked with a lot of different people. So
Super talented dude. He's one of those people that you go see live just for. I got to give him like a lot of respect for him just being an instrumental dude and actually putting on a show and just having like all these instruments around, and he just plays a thing, loops it, goes over here, loops it, and doesn't miss a beat. You know what I
wow.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's super talented at like bass, drums, synthesizers, keyboards, saxophone, whatever.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and it's
awesome.
really good. So
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of people that have either worked with him or they're fans of him.
yeah,
So yeah, but you said it was Jayla Darden, right?
yeah, him versus Jayla
Yeah,
Darden.
she man, I forget when I discovered her, but she doesn't. It sucks because she's another person that she writes a lot of songs for people and
Yeah,
she produces a lot of stuff. Like she's another artist that produces pretty much all of her own stuff for the most part, but
yeah,
she has not released like music in like 4 years, and a lot of people are like, "Where's she at? Like, why has she not dropped any actual music?" She had a feature this summer on
mm,
a producer named Esta on his album that I really liked. But
yeah.
as far as like her own material, she hasn't put out a song in 4 years. So
She
um,
probably became a parent.
I don't think
Parenting,
so. I don't think
parenting
she's
can do that.
I don't think she has. I think she's like 25 or something. I could be wrong, but
Mm,
I think she's just been doing a lot of work with other people. So that's I think why she has. She said she has a lot of demos done and like
yeah,
songs ready to go, but she just hasn't put them out yet. So, but she has a few EPs called the Ideas EPs, and it's
yeah,
just a bunch of different like demos put together. Definitely a big fan of those. She put out some singles, some different other projects as well.
yeah,
But yeah, I really love like her production style. Like how she uses 808s in her production. She does like sliding 808s that are really cool. Um, but yeah, big fan.
what's the difference between an 808 and a sliding 808? Because I've used
So
808s before. I have a
yeah,
little bit of concept of that.
sliding 808s are when you can like manipulate them and kind of change like the key of them. So you can bring like the I don't even know how to describe the sound, but you could bring it from one key, have it slide up to another one, and bring it back down, all in the same like note. It's very weird, but you can do it in like FL Studio or Ableton or anything like that. As long as
Mhm.
you can manipulate the sound, you can kind of like change it and morph it. A lot of people do that in EDM too where they
Right.
change the bass and they kind of just morph it in a different way. So you can do that with 808s too. And I noticed that a lot of her music has the sliding 808 thing, and I really like. There's another producer named Wonder Girl who does a
Mhm.
lot of the sliding 808 stuff that I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Like if you can do it right, it sounds really cool. So
Hmm. Well, this
yeah,
is a hard one. I'm gonna let you choose.
I think FKJ just from that description of what you said about the live performances, I think that's impressive. Like I kind of want to see like a YouTube video of a concert of his now, like his
Do it.
stage
I mean,
setup.
every single one
Like,
of them are all cool and
yeah,
solid. It's intimidating. Someone who's been playing as long as I have.
yeah.
It's like I wish I had that in my room where I could just be in a circle full of instruments and
It, it
do that.
really, it really baffles me how talented some people really are. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like how they can have the brain capacity to do all the things they do and do it all very well too. It's like some people just, man, I don't know.
Yeah. He almost reminds me of like a more serious, what is his name? Mark Ribelay or whatever, the guy that is funny and DJs.
Yeah, I forget. Is that the guy with the glasses?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I've
long hair
seen.
and like the French mustache that always
Yeah,
loops everything perfectly.
I've seen his videos a lot just pop up randomly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He seemed like a good, fun concert to go to.
yeah,
Next, we have, I only listened to two songs of Kay Roosevelt. I have Kay Roosevelt versus Frank Ocean.
that's a great matchup because a lot of people compare the two,
Ooh,
which is crazy. Like K Roosevelt's more of the he's like the underground Frank Ocean, honestly. That's how
wow.
I would compare him. And he produced I don't know, he might have even produced for Frank Ocean, but he
Hmm.
produced a lot of hip hop stuff, and a lot some R&B stuff too. But I forget I discovered him in probably like 2013. Um, Forget what his I think his first EP was called Rose Gold, and it was really like dark R&B, like a lot more modern stuff.
Yeah, I
And then
like that.
as he's gone on, it's been a lot more acoustic, a lot more of like a different type of style. But like his vocals and just the way that he creates songs, I think has always been something I've been a fan of. But if you like Frank Ocean, I feel like you'd love K. Roosevelt stuff too, because it's
I,
very much in the similar vein of music.
I was digging it
Um,
for sure.
yeah, and even their vocal styling is a lot of like the similar stuff. And they both kind of started around the same time, like 2010, 2011, like somewhere in there is
Wow.
kind of when they both were like releasing music and kind of like
Mhm.
beginning their journey as artists too. So that's a pretty cool matchup.
I'm gonna have to check K. Roosevelt out for
Yeah.
sure then, because
His his album that he put out called Solstice in
yeah,
2022, the most recent full album, that was probably my favorite one. But Neon Haze is also a great album too. So like both of those full albums are probably my favorite ones from him. So
I'll definitely check him out then.
yeah,
Yeah, just the way Frank Ocean puts so many words together in like one phrase. It's just like, if you know how like if you're like doing karaoke and say there is a verse that you get onto, like, you think you know the song and then you see the verse and you're like, okay, I remember the cadence of that.
yeah, yep.
You'll never fucking do that with Frank Ocean.
Yeah,
You can just see this long sentence. You're like, how the fuck am I supposed to put that in this one short bar? Because he's like, it's just he's a genius with putting
yeah,
that shit together.
yeah.
And Kate Roosevelt too.
Do you think he's ever gonna drop another album? What do you think?
That's why I might be leaving him with you
Oh,
to choose K. Roosevelt, because he's
yeah.
I don't know what's going on with the guy. I think he might have some issues.
Well,
Uh,
it's crazy because I remember the gap it took between Channel Orange and Blonde, and everybody was like, "Man, that's such a long time." Well, it's been twice as long now between Blonde and if there's ever going to be another album from
yeah,
him. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, some artists they just do that. You know what I mean? I think he's kind of notorious for doing it, just
that
kind
and
of popping up like where he wants to. But
that weird performance. What was it? Lollapalooza, or was it something else? Not Lollapalooza. What's the other big one?
was it Coachella maybe?
Coachella. Yes,
Yeah.
it was like last year's Coachella. It was really weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
I
just
don't remember honestly because I wouldn't call myself a Frank Ocean fan or aficionado, but I'm just familiar with him because of the
yeah,
amount of people that enjoy his music and really like his stuff. And when he pops up, I mean, it's super exciting to be like, oh, like he's doing stuff or he's putting out music or he's performing or whatever. But
right.
yeah, it is kind of interesting that he's one of those artists that seems just very like he only says something when he feels like he needs to say something. So it's interesting, but
Should be a lot to say. There's so much going on in the world right now, you
yeah,
know. That's what always confuses me. Like, even with bands in my era or my genre, like your Rage Against the Machines, your System of a Down. I never really liked System of a Down, by the way, but I'm like the only person on earth. But their message, they have a lot to say in their music. They
mhm,
said it in the '90s and the early 2000s, but you would think that with just all this crazy shit that goes on in our country, they would be saying so much right now, and
yeah,
they're nowhere. But anyway, moving on. I really liked Aaron Ray a lot, a lot,
yeah,
a lot. But I love the internet. I don't know if you've heard of them, but
yeah. I
me,
like. I've heard some of the internet songs. I really love Sid, who's the
mhm,
lead singer of the internet.
yeah,
So yeah, definitely familiar, and I think that's another great matchup. Honestly, like that's gonna be a hard one, but I know Aaron Ray is another person I discovered from from his production.
mhm,
He worked with a lot of different artists that I've been a fan of. I think the first time I heard him, he was working with Terrace Martin, who's a great instrumentalist, producer, artist. And I was like, oh, I like his hook on this song. There's a song called Beige, and he
yeah,
was on that song, and I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. And I found out he had an album called Platinum Fire. It was like his first full album he put out. And I was pretty impressed with that. And I just started kind of listening to all the stuff he's put out since then. He's got some EPs called Phases that I'm a big fan of. The third one came out last year. I think that's probably one of his best projects to date,
Mhm.
honestly. I think he's about to put out more music because he's going on tour in the next like month or so. So I don't know if he's putting out like an album or just a song or something, but
Right.
yeah, like whenever he's featured on somebody's song or he's just putting out his own stuff, I've always been very impressed with his music. So, and he's from Cincinnati, Ohio too. So he's another Ohio artist that so I thought that was pretty cool. But
The only thing is, like, I'm a huge fan that the fact that the internet is a band, it's an actual
yeah,
band, and they're really good on
yep.
their instruments, and then they have Sid,
Uh,
on top of that.
yeah. I like how Sid did her own solo stuff too that was a little different from the internet because it shows her
Mhm.
range too. Like I remember when she dropped her first album, it was so different from her music with the internet, but
Yeah.
it was still really good because she's just such a great songwriter and vocalist. It was like, wow, like she really has the range to do so much. So
Hmm. I'm
I'm
again.
cool.
You seem to
I'm
know
cool with
that.
putting the internet through, honestly.
All right.
But
I was gonna leave it up to you on that
yeah,
one. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to listen to, and I'll probably say their name wrong. It's Snow Allegra.
yeah.
All right, and that's against Sade.
Again, another incredible matchup because it's two artists that get compared all the time again.
Ooh, not
Everybody
very
says
many
that
people can be
Snow
compared.
is the modern day Sade, and that's
Really,
her favorite artist too. That was her main inspiration
that's
was
hilarious.
Sade. Um, so yeah, if you like Sade, you'll love Snow. Like I can promise you that,
I'll be
honestly.
listening to that for
So
sure.
yeah. Um, and Snow, I forget when I first heard her. It was probably the rapper Common by
Yeah,
chance.
yep.
Yeah. So she was on Common's album called Nobody's Smiling like 10 years ago. And that was probably the first time I saw her name. She just started popping up on features, and I found out that she got signed to the producer No ID's like label at the time.
Hmm.
And then she just started putting out her own stuff. She put out her first album. She actually had a song in an Apple commercial in like 2018. And that's how a lot of people discovered her was from the Apple commercial. It was a
Yeah.
song called Nothing Burns Like the Cold that had Vince Staples on it. But her song that's called Those Feels Again is probably one of the best R&B albums I've ever heard, honestly.
Yeah.
It's honestly my favorite R&B album, but it's definitely one of the best R&B projects I think that's ever been put out, like quite
Mhm.
frankly. Her last album was good. Her last album was good. I didn't like it as much as the previous album, but pretty much everything she puts out is pretty quality stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a big Sade fan, like I think it's pretty predestined that you'll be a fan of Snow in some type of way. I think
Nice.
so.
Well, if she has that type of range, I don't know. Actually, like I wouldn't say Sade has like a wide, huge range. I just think that she's like, um, I don't know. It feels like a warm blanket is being wrapped around me when I hear her
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
Like, oh, I feel sexy.
Yeah,
um,
I don't think there's a wrong answer on this one, honestly.
okay.
I don't even think there's a wrong answer.
Some point, I mean, at some of these, I look at it like I kind of want to I want to push ahead the new people
Yeah,
because I don't know. I just feel like there's all these endless opportunities for these new or these older artists to they don't have to make a comeback, they just put out music, but they're not.
yeah,
Like Sade hasn't put out an album since 2010, as far as I know.
yeah,
Seal, he hasn't put out one since probably 2014, 2015, or something like that.
yeah. The
I
thing
could
is,
be,
I think that's the beauty about this is like there's really no right or wrong answer. It's just like whatever feels right, I think.
let's do
So,
snow. I'll do snow.
okay.
That'll be cool. Go against the internet. Um, Maeta, Maeta, right?
Yeah,
Or
I
is
think
this
it's pronounced Meta actually.
Meta
Yeah,
versus Erica Badu, like which is one of my personal favorites. So,
yeah, yeah. So Meta is she works a lot with Ombre, who we talked about earlier.
uh-huh.
She actually just did not a song, a project with Kate Renata. You know who Kate Renata is?
I think in that one you asked me just a few minutes ago, or is that a different person?
No, that's a different. Kate Renata is a pretty big producer. He's done a lot of dance records, things like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I do know
Yeah,
Kate Chinada. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. She just did an album with him like in June,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah,
She's
that
worked with
person's good.
him. She's worked with a lot of different people. I discovered her from being a fan of Ombre, though. They did a collaboration. They did a song called Colorblind that I was a big fan of. So that was kind of how I discovered her. But I love her voice. I like how she kind of is trying different things because I think she was doing it more like traditional R&B, like to begin with, and now because she's working with like Kate Renata and people like that, she's switching it up more like fast-paced stuff, kind of dipping into different worlds. But yeah, I mean, if people hear Ombre and they like her music, they'll probably like Maida's stuff too.
Mhm.
It's a little bit different. From what I know, she's just a vocalist. I don't know if she produces anything or anything like that, but yeah. Questions is probably one of my favorite songs she's done. That was another Kate Renata produced song, but that came out last year on like her EP that she dropped. So
It's
yeah,
interesting to hear a producer's perspective on it. Like, as a rock and metal guy, I actually know where most of my favorite albums were recorded and mixed and produced by who. And it's
yeah,
cool to hear that most people don't give a shit.
right. And it's weird
But
because a lot of these
those
artists I
people, yeah,
discover because of their production and
yeah,
not because of them as an artist. Or it's like, oh, it was produced by this person, so now I know this artist.
yeah,
So it's like it's just everybody's different in how they
yeah.
discover things or like how they're looking at it. So
Well, that's I want this podcast to be for people such as ourselves, I mean,
yeah,
musicians, producers, managers, whatever. But there's a reason why that person's music sounds really good, and it sounds like that other person's albums because in the
yeah,
background there's someone producing it, and it's that one person.
hmm, yeah,
Just the same way with like your Corn and your Slipknot of the metal world. Same dude was in the studio drawing all these crazy negative energies out of Corn and Slipknot. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah. Best of the best.
Right.
Yep.
I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on Erica Badu? How do you feel about her?
I'm familiar with her just from the people she's worked with. One of my favorite musicians is Robert Glasper, and she's done a lot of work with him over the years. Her own catalog, I'm not too familiar with, but I'm just familiar with like her importance to like neo soul and that whole era of music.
Right.
So I feel like she's super important, honestly, just music and the general landscape and like all together. So I'd probably have to give the nod to her, and you probably know a lot more about her than I do, just from
Definitely.
being a fan. So
Yeah. That's another one of those artists where it might say Erica Badu, but it's like the internet. As far as I know, she has like a full band, and they're all just really good instrumentalists.
yeah,
Um, for me, like I would love to see her in concert, and not just see her too. I'd be watching the band and everything
yeah,
because there's a lot going on. Like it's every album that I've bought of hers, which should be all of them as far as I know. She has tons of really good songs on there. You know, sometimes you'll buy an album and you think, I like that one or two songs by that artist, but there's like a couple fillers in it.
yeah,
It's kind of shitty. Um, she has those songs. It's hard to describe as a metalhead and a rock guy. Sometimes you buy an album and the song or the CD will kick off with like just an absolute banger, and you're just like, why isn't that a hit? Really, you're like, I bet that's one of those they're gonna bust out in concert and everyone's gonna lose their shit to. Well,
yeah.
she's got a lot of those. I don't know how to explain it any other way. She has a
Hmm,
lot of songs that aren't hits that are like, you're gonna lose your damn mind if you see her play that in concert.
yeah. What's that expression? All killer, no filler.
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. Perfect saying for that.
Yep.
The last there, I did get a chance to listen to Lena Baraz, just a little bit, versus my pick Solange.
Yeah. Two really good picks, honestly. Um, the only song I'm familiar with Solange is the Cranes in the Sky song.
That's
It's
a
one
good
of her
one, yeah.
biggest songs.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to a ton of her music, but I know people. She has a real like big fan base. A lot of
Mhm.
people enjoy her stuff. So I really want to really tap in with like especially her last two albums because I know they were both really big projects.
Yeah.
So Alina is another Ohio artist. She's
Nice.
from Cleveland, and then I think she moved to LA to kind of get like her start, like after college or whatever. But she did a project with an EDM producer named Galimatias, I believe is his name. He's
Mhm.
like one of the biggest producer, and I'm not really familiar with EDM, but this is how like she like this was like kind of her first big project that she had. And I think the biggest song was her song called Fantasy, which I enjoy that song. I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
Um, but that EP was more in that realm of EDM. And then from there, she really went in more of the R&B route. And I think she's stated that one of her favorite singers and like her main inspiration was Amy Winehouse.
Oh
So
wow.
like if you listen to that first EP, you can definitely hear a lot of like I'm not saying she was trying to be Amy Winehouse, but she was definitely getting a lot of like the vocal like tones from Amy's music,
Yeah.
from like the Frank album and things like that. Um, but I honestly think in the last like 4 years, she's really since like 2018 or 19, she's found her identity as an artist, like with what she's put out more and more. And her first album was called It Was Divine, and I was like super blown away by that project.
Uh-huh.
And that's another like you were just talking about with Erica, where the album has like so much great music on it. That's how I felt about that album. I was like, all these songs really hold up very well, and they're
Mm.
all sequenced very well. And she put out some EPs in 2021. I think she's like working on the next album currently, so she hasn't put out a ton of stuff recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just love her sound and voice, and I would definitely love to see her perform eventually because I think she's just super awesome with
Mm.
what she does. But yeah, if she ever comes back to Cleveland for a show, maybe I'll have to go. But
Definitely.
yep.
Um, I'm gonna leave it up to you, man.
Who did you have? Solange?
Solange.
Yeah, we can do Solange.
You don't have to pick it because I chose it now.
No, we can. I'm even looking at it from like influence alone. Like
Right.
I think Solange has the influence on really just the genre of R&B and culture and everything. Like, and I really do need to sit down and check out her stuff more than just a couple songs. So,
I like that Cranes in the Sky song, but there's one that I like better. It's I think it's called "Don't Touch My Hair" or something like that.
mm,
That one's really good. It shows her vocal range. I feel like that. Um,
yeah,
the newer R&B, if that's like neo soul, if that's what you want to call it, um, it shows this like as a singer and myself, it's really hard to sing that like really breathy stuff. Um, like I don't know if you've ever heard of Imogene Heap. She sings like that a lot. It's just a lot of like takes a lot of your breath to get it out, and you sound like almost like a whisper, real
huh,
vulnerable sounding. She sings like that in that song a lot, and it's just it's beautiful, really good.
nice. Yeah, I definitely gotta take a deeper dive into her catalog.
Yeah. Uh, well, we're getting to the next stage. So Seal versus Ombre.
I
Um,
don't I don't know. I feel like I would have to go Ombre at this point,
yeah,
but
I'm good with going with the new man. I feel like the new era is gonna, they're gonna do more. there's a lot. It's a lot easier. These other artists had to go to the studio and stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, now this is a good matchup: FKJ versus K Roosevelt.
Very similar artists from the description you told me. So I'd probably go FKJ still. I'm still picturing him just bouncing back and forth between all these different things on stage.
Absolutely smoothly too. Don't forget
Like,
that.
yeah.
I think you're really gonna like that, man.
Yeah.
Internet versus Snow.
Ooh. I would probably say Snow, but that's just my preference on that one. The internet's great. Like it's hard to go against the internet, honestly.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
if Snow sounds like Sade, a new age, I would like to hear modern music with Sade's voice on it. So I'm like excited. As soon as we get off here, I'm gonna set that up on Spotify to listen to it.
Nice. Yeah, I think you're gonna love it, honestly.
Yeah,
So
I can even send you. I can send you a link to the FKJ. I think you'll like it a lot.
yeah.
He's got a couple of shows. I know two videos for sure that will blow your friggin' mind. Um, Erica Badu versus Solange.
I'd say Erica on this one.
Yeah. Ombre versus FKJ. A certain always
Go
get got
FKJ.
to this point before, and it's kind of like, do I go with the other person because there's vocals?
Yeah.
You know,
I'm still go. I'd go FKJ on this one personally.
right on. Let's see, Snow versus Erica Badu. Basically, old versus new.
Yeah. I'd probably still go Erica, honestly. She's still doing so much too,
Yeah,
even like doing features and things like that. So
it's a damn good championship. FKJ versus Erica Badu. Me personally, I would choose Badu.
yeah,
Erica Badu is being a winner over that. That would just be great.
I was thinking the same thing, honestly, and just her longevity too.
Yeah,
Like, I think that wins because I think she has a little bit of what the older artists have and what the newer artists have too. Just being able to like still be in the mix, still be relevant.
right.
Like,
I think that was perfect, man.
yeah,
You were really informative with all the other artists that I haven't got to hear yet. So now it's like, now I know what to be listening for as I'm listening to it.
yeah.
So
Hopefully you enjoy what you hear for sure. So,
I think a lot of these artists owe us money.
yeah, we're giving them free promo right now.
Right, a
Yep,
lot.
yep,
Let's see. All right, man. So if there's
yep.
anything you want to say before we sign off, just let me say thank you for your time, man. That was great.
Yeah. Well, again, man, thank you for getting back in touch with me. And this is probably one of the more unique ones I've done. I've done a lot of podcasts, been talked to a lot of different people, but this one was cool. This one felt very interactive, and I love the questions. And I love that bracket we just did. And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, if you ever want me back on, definitely let me know. I would love to come back. But thank you again for having me. So
definitely. Maybe one day I'll have you on and we'll be talking about some songs you've produced with me. So,
yeah, yeah, I love that, man.
all right, man. Thanks and have a good day.
Absolutely, man. Take care.